After years of dominating F1 headlines, Lewis Hamilton's move to Ferrari was supposed to be the fairytale ending, one final chapter of glory. But after just 3 races in red, it's starting to look like a nightmare. Hamilton has just exposed a major flaw in the Ferrari SF-25, and what he said after the Japanese Grand Prix has the F1 world on edge. Because this isn't just about a bad setup. This is about a car that might be deliberately, or accidentally, holding him back. If you're a Hamilton fan, a Ferrari supporter, or just someone who loves the chaos of F1, you're going to want to hear this. Stick around, because what you're about to hear might change everything about Hamilton's legacy and Ferrari's season. At Suzuka, Hamilton qualified P8 and finished P7. That's not a disaster on paper, until you realize that his teammate Charles Leclerc qualified ahead, finished P4, and looked far more comfortable in the same car. So what's going on? Hamilton, ever the diplomat, finally let his frustration show in a post-race interview with Sky Sports. He confirmed Ferrari has identified an underperforming part in his car, something that's cost him over 1/10 of a second per lap. And in F1, 1/10 is the difference between Q2 and Q3, between P7 and a podium. But here's where it gets spicy, this issue? It's only affecting Hamilton's car. Let's not sugarcoat it. If the roles were reversed right now, with Leclerc trailing and Hamilton dominating, headlines would be filled with questions of favoritism, garage politics, and teammate tension. But because it's Lewis Hamilton, arguably the greatest of all time, struggling, the narrative suddenly shifts to adjustment period or teething issues. But behind the scenes? It's messier than it looks. Multiple paddock sources suggest there's an internal divide slowly emerging at Ferrari. Leclerc, who's been the face of the team for nearly half a decade, naturally has deeper roots. Some mechanics, engineers, even decision-makers, have grown alongside him. He's their guy. The one they've invested years into. And now, with Hamilton arriving, disrupting that status quo, demanding changes, raising red flags, it's got some people uncomfortable. Now ask yourself this: Hamilton says there's an underperforming component on his side of the garage. Only his car, not Leclerc's. How convenient is that? Add in the fact that Leclerc's been finishing higher consistently despite both cars allegedly being identical, and the whispers start to get louder. Is Ferrari really giving equal treatment? Or are we witnessing another case of number one driver politics? And let's not forget, Ferrari has a history. Think back to the Vettel-Leclerc era. Strategy calls, pit stop priorities, chassis upgrades, there have always been subtle hints of favoritism. It begs the question, is Hamilton fighting not just the car, but also the system within Ferrari? Do you believe Ferrari is favoring Leclerc this season? Or is Hamilton still finding his rhythm with the SF-25? Hamilton didn't exactly name the problematic component, but he was very clear on one thing: the issue is hurting his pace in both qualifying and during the race. He said, "We found something on the car which is underperforming. If that's fixed, I'm losing over 1/10 a lap." Now, that may sound like a small number, but in Formula 1, 1/10 of a second is huge. This could mean the difference between starting P5 and P7, or even losing a position after the first lap. And when every millisecond counts, being 1/10 slower per lap adds up quickly. So, what's going on with his car? Well, after that controversial disqualification in China, where Hamilton was penalized for excessive plank wear, Ferrari had to make an adjustment. They raised the ride height on his car. Sounds simple, right? But that adjustment killed the car's aerodynamic performance, especially at tracks like Suzuka, where high downforce is a must for fast lap times. Here's where it gets technical. Raised ride height equals less aerodynamic grip. Less grip equals more understeer. The car doesn't want to turn in corners. And when there's less grip at the back of the car, the rear end becomes unpredictable, often losing stability, a nightmare at high-speed corners like Suzuka's 130R. Leclerc? Well, he seems to have adapted. But Hamilton's telemetry tells a different story. Hamilton is fighting the car, his inputs show his braking deeper, turning in harder, and trying to overcompensate for the lack of grip. And we know what that means: more throttle corrections, more tire wear, and ultimately less consistent pace over the race distance. Every extra input Hamilton has to make just adds to the tire degradation, which means slower lap times as the race progresses. He's essentially having to drive around the issue, rather than simply letting the car work for him. This is where the problem becomes even more obvious. Leclerc, despite his own struggles, seems to be managing better with the same car setup. His telemetry suggests he's not pushing as hard as Hamilton, which means he's not burning his tires as quickly, and he's able to maintain a more consistent pace. Hamilton, on the other hand, is pushing harder to compensate, and that's not sustainable over a full season. What's even more concerning is what Hamilton hinted next. Now, things take a darker turn. After revealing that Ferrari has identified an issue with the car, Hamilton dropped a major bombshell. There's been a bit of a deficit between both sides of the garage on some elements of the car. On my side, underperforming. Wait a minute. Underperforming? That's Hamilton's polite way of saying, something's wrong, and it's only happening to me. And here's where things get even more concerning. Ferrari has admitted they know about the problem, but they don't understand why it's happening. Now, why would that be? How can the team not understand an issue they've found on Hamilton's car? Are their engineers missing something, or is there something deeper going on? Is the communication inside Ferrari starting to break down? Think about it, Hamilton's car is not behaving the same way as Leclerc's, even though they both should be driving the same car. So what's happening behind the scenes? Is there a disconnect between the engineers working on each side of the garage? Could the data from the simulators be inaccurate or misleading? Or is this Ferrari's dirty little secret? Are they testing out new parts on Hamilton's car without his full knowledge? Maybe Leclerc is getting the better spec car, while Hamilton is left to deal with the underperforming components. This could be a huge issue for Ferrari's internal politics. If there's favoritism or secret testing going on, it would be a massive blow to team cohesion. We've seen this happen before in F1 history. Teams have been caught in scandalous situations, and Ferrari would not want to be involved in something like that, especially when they're trying to compete with Red Bull, McLaren, and Mercedes. Comment if you think something shady is going on inside Ferrari. Do you think Hamilton is getting the short end of the stick, or is this just a case of technical failure? Let's hear your thoughts below.